Now, I dropped a word earlier that I want to define for you guys. Gothic. What does Gothic mean? You know, I mean, a lot of us have been exposed to this word since early high school, right? But what does it really mean? Let's give a definition to it, right? So Gothic can mean a couple things, right? It can call to mind a certain specific era, okay? In the medieval ages, somewhere around 1100 AD, architects and artists were looking back at the Roman ages, okay, for inspiration as to how to build buildings, build roads, how to make art. Folks that were living in the Victorian age, right, or the Edwardian age, looked back at the medieval period, okay, and took the lessons that they had learned and brought it forward to their time. And in today's world, right, we look back at this turn of the century time, this Victorian age, and we say, what were the things that they did well? And we're going to redo those things with art and stories and literature today. A horror film is not just looking into the past, like looking in the past of a culture, it's also looking into the past of a genre. Okay? Even from its earliest days, Gothic horror, which is what haunted house horror is, was always a look into the past. Haunted house stories rely on a lot of horror cliches. What do we do when tropes become cliches? Well, you either embrace them or you discard them. These are different than the tropes that we've studied so far, so I want to add to it. In a Gothic horror, you're always going to get a castle or a fancy home. Okay? Gothic horror is usually told from the perspective of people who are wealthy. The interior of the castle is almost like a living graveyard of people who are living past their prime. Elegance. Every time you are in a haunted house story, you're always going to be dealing with a fancy last name, usually a fancy British last name, like Allardyce, Belvedere, okay? I talked to you guys about the forbidden rooms, okay? There's going to be a forbidden room in today's movie. It's a lot of fun. You don't want the door to be opened, but you kind of do. Gothic literature in America is a great vehicle for addressing our past as a nation, okay? This is why Southern Gothic is a thing, yeah? Is anybody familiar with the genre of the Southern Gothic? Authors like Flannery O'Connor, Tennessee Williams. So a lot of these stories are set in the Deep South, which, if you think about it, sort of makes sense, right? Because a lot of the movers and shakers in the South were wealthy. They used their wealth for evil, and history has sort of depicted the South in a way that is the antithesis of how they saw themselves, right? Southern plantation owners, wealthy Southerners, saw themselves as the masters of their universe, right? And then after the Civil War, after the antebellum South collapsed, they saw their wealth slowly decay. So just as the Victorian era British saw their past or their wealth as falling away, many traditional Southerners in America see their wealth, okay, as sort of part of the tapestry of this Gothic mentality, right? This beautiful plantation home, and there's skeletons in the closet, right? There's ghosts that inhabit the halls of this house, right? Many times when you watch a haunted house story, the house looks kind of Southern. Kind of, right? It never looks like a house that you would see in California. It looks like a house that you would find in the South, and I can't help but wonder if Southern Gothic is a genre that helps us deal with America's past of slavery, right? This is something that haunts us not just politically, but also in our art and in our literature.